Welcome back, warriors. It's me, Linda B. Thank you all so much for joining me here for another live stream. I do my live streams Mondays through Thursdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, I live in the state of Georgia, so it is Eastern Standard Time. So that's 8:30 Central, 7:30 Mountain Time, and 6:30 West Coast, California time. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with a word of prayer. Dear God, in Jesus' name, we thank you so much, Father. You are amazing, and that how you love and protect us and give us your grace and your mercy. We ask for continued protection for everyone, for this country, and for those who are part of my YouTube family. And I thank you so much, Father. You are awesome. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, guys. Hello. Who do we have already in the chat? We've got June Stanley. Hello, June. Fed Up Patriot. How are you doing, Fed Up Patriot? Hello. And let's see who else we have. We have SK Abstract Art. Hello there. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started, guys, because we have a number of things that we want to go through, and I'm just going to share them with you now. One of the main things is Victor Hanson, which I am going to leave towards the end. I'm going to make you wait for that one. That one's really, really good. He is a historian and a conservative political commentator. He's 71 years old, and he's giving the lowdown. I mean, the lowdown breakdown on everything with Biden, Obama, other things. I mean, he's really giving it to you. And guys, don't forget to smash the like button, comment, share, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click all notifications so you never ever miss a video. And I kindly ask that you stick around to the very end of this video, because I'm saving the best for last. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. What's going on out here in these streets? Now, first of all, we got Judge Janine. You guys know her from Fox. Now, she has got 5 of the biggest rollers I have ever seen in anybody's head. And she put this, I'm like, and then you got to wonder, is this AI? I mean, I'm like, why would she get on here with rollers in her hair? But this is Judge Janine. Here she is. 5 big rollers. And here she is talking. Let's see what she has to say. Turn this up for you guys.
I am fed up with this nonsense about Abrego Garcia. This mother dirtbag doesn't belong in this country. And as far as I'm concerned, any Democrat who supports him has really chosen to be someone who is anti-domestic violence. This guy is a batterer. He beat his wife, or whatever she was, in front of a neighbor. He beat her in front of her sister. He pulled her by the hair. He wakes up at 3 a.m. and starts beating her. She has videos. She has photographs. She goes to court twice. She has credible, believable evidence. She gets orders of protection. And in the end, she ends up dropping the charges. Why? Because she's suffering from battered women syndrome. She minimizes it because she's afraid of him. And her ex-husband, who's the father of her children, he files an order in court because the wife said she was going to kill herself. He was afraid his children with Abrego Garcia would end up with an MS-13 gangbanger. And he is a gangbanger. Why? Because he's got all the tats on his fingers. I spent 30 years in law enforcement. I had a gang unit. I started the first domestic violence unit in the country. I am not an ideologue. I am an experienced law enforcement professional. Enough with this dirtbag. The guy was bringing in smugglers for money. You got 8 men in a car. No one's got a license. Even Abrego Garcia doesn't have a license. They call ICE. ICE didn't show up. So he goes away and they give him a citation. The guy is a gangbanger. He's an illegal. He's a batterer. And batterings increase in frequency and intensity as time goes on. This mother banger does not belong here. And if Senator Van Hollen and the rest of them want to support him, then you should make sure that you understand they are siding with illegal criminals against the victims in this country.
Now, that should not surprise us about, the demon rats. They always take up for the criminals. You know how they do. Anybody that is even suspected of doing wrong, they take up for that person. Oh, it could be somebody misbehaving with the police who gives a lawful, orderly command, and they always take up for the person that is being disruptive. And they do that. And I'm sure you've seen that as a trend. Now we got to talk about these demon rats, y'all. And I'm getting a little bit warm, so hold on just a second. Okay. All right. So, yeah, Abrego Garcia. He's MS-13. Now, I was saying allegedly, but it looks like the man really does belong to this gang. It really does look that way. And it looks like he is a wife beater. He is smuggling. I'll just say allegedly, but you know what I mean. This man looks really, really guilty and illegal. And they're going through all this trouble to take up for him. Why? The demon rats need these folks. And they're using this as a way of making them look compassionate, but never mistake anything that they do for compassion. Okay, we know better than that by now. Because if they had real, true compassion, they would be talking to the families of Maryland who lost their loved ones by way of an illegal, by the way, Rachel Morin. Senator Van Hollen is doing doing the most, going to El Salvador, trying to get Abrego Garcia out when he has hardly, according to the mother, had any contact with her after she brutally lost her daughter to an illegal. And I think the illegal belonged to the same gang. Make that make sense. Make it make sense. But yeah, Judge Janine, I like her. And I don't know why she on there with all those rollers in her hair. I guess she said, you know what? I'm just going to do what I got to do. And next, I want you guys to hear from Rudy Giuliani. Okay, Rudy Giuliani says that Letitia James will go to jail. Oh my gosh. He said she will go to jail if convicted of mortgage fraud. If she's convicted. If she got convicted, she's putting people in jail aggressively. And here she is involved in fraud. And I'm going to say allegedly. Sounds like prison, pretty cut and dry. Big Tish. Is that where you're headed, Big Tish? Or are you headed to the jail?
So the hoaxes against President Trump are many. One of them was run out of New York. Letitia James is now in hot water herself. And you say that you're very proud of the speed at which the Trump administration is moving. Letitia James is obviously quite a big target. We call her Big Tish on this program, and it seems like she's in hot water quite bigly. What's your take on this, Mr. Mayor?
Well, my take on it is that
I got to pause. Benny Johnson is throwing a lot of shade. He is saying she's a big target and she's in trouble bigly. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing, Benny.
They've created for some people an equivalency between what she did and what the administration is doing. What she did is in both she and Bragg, both cases, is create a crime that doesn't exist and produce false evidence to support it. I just remind you of the evaluation of Mar-a-Lago at $18 million. Every time I live in Palm Beach and I look at 40, 50, 60, $80 million 4-bedroom homes. This thing is worth, you pick the price. It's one of these priceless places. If I said $500 million, you jump at it. If I said $1 billion, I might be closer to it. The guy absolutely lied. I mean, he should create a value. I've never heard of a fraud case where nobody lost money. The definition of fraud is, putting people at disadvantage, hurting them. She's charged with saying that you live in, Virginia or Maryland when you're the attorney general in New York. That's a pretty big lie on a loan application. Maybe there's no explanation for that.
Now, why they got this picture of her looking like this? Now that's just crazy. I don't like this picture. I know they just caught her in mid smile or whatever that is, But yeah, he's saying, you know, and that's what I've said all along on this channel, that how can you have fraud when there are no victims? He's just making the point. Mayor Giuliani is making the point that that's the whole reason of fraud. Someone gets hurt, but everybody was paid on time with interest and they didn't have a problem. I'm telling you, they're going to reap what they have sown. They're going to. And she knows it. And she's trying to put on this front and play like no one's above the law. These are baseless. They're baseless accusations. Yeah, they're baseless. All right. The ones you had against President Trump were baseless.
Saying that a building is smaller than it actually is, actually you cheat people out of the amount of money they're going to loan or their security and collateral. They actually get cheated. And there's plenty more. These are things that anybody be prosecuted for. And I remember she was the one that constantly said, nobody is above the law. Well, if we were to ignore the fact that she put herself in a marriage with her father in order to save money, cheat people out of money, who could justify that? The only problem is, does it get tried in New York? And our New York jury is just as bad the other way. I mean, they'll convict anything that smells Trump. If she puts up, Trump is coming after me, are they going to have a hard time? Now, it is a federal case, right? I think it's a federal case. And you tend to get a jury in a federal case because you're talking about a much bigger pool of people for a federal case. So we might get a fair trial there. But this has to be tried. I mean, it's ridiculous to fight the U.S. Attorney's Office. It's public. She's the Attorney General. She lied about her residence and her marital status in order to cheat people out of money. Pretty cut and dry.
Not only did she lie about her marital status, she allegedly put her own father down as her husband. Woo! Now, she's never been married. Okay, let's be clear. Letitia James, according to everything I've read, has never been married. She doesn't have any children. I don't see where she's had any children. And you're looking at this post on my screen, Tish James, no one is above the law. And this was about exactly a year ago, May 30th, 2024. And remember, she ran on getting Trump. Now, you got her in one point. She was standing there next to Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg.
You would predict prison time.
If she got convicted?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. I mean, she maybe not if she were just a regular person. This is where having public office probably disadvantages you. But the fact that she had public office and she's really lying to the people of the state that she's a resident about her residency, and she's putting people in jail aggressively, and here she is involved in fraud. Yeah, it sounds like a prison, at least some form of prison to deter other public officials from doing the same thing. I think if she was just a regular citizen messing around with a loan application and it was a first offense, I'm not sure I'd put her in jail.
So interesting times, good things to come.
Fascinating. I think it's the most interesting times in the, I'm 80 years old, soon to be 81. And it's the most interesting, and I've been through, my recollection begins with the Korean War. I was born as the Second World War ended, but I was interested, my family was very interested in politics. So from the time I was a child, my mother and father were discussing communism and the danger of communism. And one was a Republican, the other was a Democrat.
So yeah, I'm stopping it right here. I want to just make a shout out to Fed Up Patriot for the super chat. Thank you so much. Fed Up Patriot. Thank you. Yeah, the communism thing is, I was thinking about this earlier today. The Democrats really have gone down this communist route. They have taken a very dark turn. And you know what I'm going to start doing, Warriors? I'm going to start checking out WEF, World Economic Forum meetings, because I know that I've seen them here and there and about, and really listen to what they're saying. I was listening to a meeting, and I don't know if it was a WEF meeting or not, but they were talking about some woman was talking about they want to go past, support of the alphabet lifestyle. They don't want just tolerance. They want people to be activists, and then they want them to move beyond being an activist. They want them to go from tolerance to activism to participation. Now that just freaked me out when they said participation. What the hell do you mean participation in that? And I don't remember what meeting that was. It was a woman speaking about it. And then I've heard about people saying things like you're gonna, have nothing and be happy, and eating fake meat and all this kind of stuff. I'm gonna really listen to those meetings. I hear they're very boring and tedious, but very informational, very informative. So we will know exactly what is going on. And I won't play an actual clip from one. I won't play a clip. I will just talk to you about what they're actually saying. So I will take one for the team and listen to these long, arduous meetings. You all may be listening to them already, but in any event, former mayor Giuliani, Rudy Giuliani, and I used to not like him. See, the media used to paint the good ones as the bad ones and the bad ones as the good ones. You know what I mean? So they always do that. And they had my mind all messed up. Y'all had my mind messed up, just brainwashed. But I am so thankful for the Lord delivering me into the light of what's really going on. But he's saying that if Letitia James is convicted, Mayor Rudy Giuliani just said, if Big Tish is convicted, she is going to jail. And I wonder how long. I've heard people say she can face up to 30 years. I heard that, don't know how true that is, and up to $1 million fine, I think. Now, she allegedly committed actual fraud, and Donald Trump did not. And he was put through all of this hell for warfare reasons. I mean, the deep state is like, don't know what to do. They are literally screaming their heads off somewhere in a padded room. I'm just serious. They're not too happy with this, and they didn't get what they wanted. And I want us to remember to pray. Pray. If you feel led to fast on your own, please do so. And I want to remind you guys too, before I continue with everything else that's going on here, please remember to follow me on social media. The links are in the description box below. X, Linda B Podcast on X, Instagram, TikTok, ChatWithMeLindaB. And make sure you follow me daily, like and comment and share all of those posts, and especially do that here on YouTube. It really means a lot. And I have another show on YouTube. I got to get more, consistent with putting out content. And that's the Linda B Show right here on YouTube. So remember me on those other platforms. And I do push out content that is really something that I can't push everywhere. You need to check me out on Rumble. Chat with me, Linda B. The link is in the description. And also you need to check me out on Locals. So all the links are in the description. You click on the link, it takes you directly there. But let me just go ahead and just move forward to other things that are happening. So Rudy Giuliani just believes if she's convicted, she is doing some time. Okay. Now, this is something I think is horrible right here. There are vandals. This is in LA, I believe. They've got a vandal criminal problem, and this is for educational purposes. We do not advocate for this type of behavior at all. This is wrong. This is for educational purposes. This is how you are not supposed to act.
Was captured on video over the weekend, people targeting stores, metro trains, and police cars with graffiti and vandalism is just the latest act of chaos that's been going on for months. He says about 15 to 20 underground parties happen every weekend, with police and businesses struggling to keep track.
We have underage drinking. We have violence coming out of these. There's nothing positive that comes out of this.
The LAPD says more than 1,000 people spilled onto the streets after an underground party Saturday night, about 50 of them vandalizing and blocking 2 Metro Line A trains at the corner of Washington and Maple. The police response was met with more vandalism and someone throwing a firework at a patrol unit. The LAPD says one officer required medical attention after getting hit with a bottle.
I want to know how many of the individuals were identified. I want to know how many of the
required medical attention after.
Look at this. Look at this. They have graffitied the officers' vehicles. We have a problem with lawlessness. We have a problem with rebellion. There's this lawlessness, this hatred of anything good. God himself is for us obeying the governing authorities. These people are outright rebellious. They've got graffiti everywhere, and I've seen people jumping on top of police cars. These police officers are going to have to get more spine, because a lot of them act like they're scared to do anything. And then when you have that many people, though, then you probably are scared. And then if you do something, then they yell racism and, all that kind of stuff. And they are acting horrible. Look at this. Look at this. And then their Marxist mayor, she has a Marxist background. I found out that's mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass.
After getting hit with a bottle.
I want to know how many of the individuals were identified. I want to know who will be arrested and when.
No one was arrested at the scene, but LA Mayor Karen Bass says the LAPD and District Attorney's Office will be looking at the videos to find those responsible. Rodriguez says the city needs to go a step further and hold responsible those who are allowing the underground parties to happen.
Not one party promoter, not any person granting access to a space to be used has been held accountable for these parties. If LA really wants to revitalize downtown LA and bring it back to what it was before the pandemic, this needs to be addressed.
Rodriguez compares.
Yes, that's awful, guys. Look at that. That is absolutely awful. Ghetto fatigue. It says ghetto fatigue. A mob of 1,000 rampaged through downtown. A mob of 1,000 people rampaged through downtown Los Angeles Saturday night, vandalizing trains, spray painting LAPD cars, and assaulting officers. They were actually hitting police officers. One hospitalized after being hit with a bottle. We are truly in the last of the last days. That is so evil. That is so evil. They just went on a tear. And you see, it's all sorts of people that was in that mob, spray painting, doing all sorts of horrendous things. I just cannot believe that they were doing that. All right. So now we got to go to Victor Davis Hanson. We got to go to him and see what he is talking about. Now, he's talking about a lot. I think you guys are really going to like this. One of you mentioned that you watch him a lot. Just listen to what he has to say.
The thing that I think is most critical is if he has all of these auto pin pardons and no one has really asked him, why did you pardon Dr. Fauci or why did you pardon Adam Schiff? There's been no journalistic follow-up asking Joe Biden and all of these. I guess he's desperate for money and he's doing these tenure interviews. Nobody asked him, did you remember this tenure? Did you remember this tenure? And the second big question is, if Jake Tapper wants to redeem himself, he could write a long essay now. Who was running the White House? Who was thinking up the initiative? Who said, let's get out of Afghanistan like this? Who said, let's distance ourselves from Israel? Who said, there's no, Janet Yellen, don't worry about inflation? Or Mary, who was the one that weaponized the FBI? And we know Anthony Blinken did the 51 intelligence authorities, but were they Obama operatives or who were they?
Victor Davis Hanson lays out the story no one wants to revisit, but everyone needs to hear. Biden's rise wasn't organic. It was orchestrated. The primaries were cleared. The opposition stepped aside, and an aging figure from Scranton was framed as a centrist cover for the most progressive agenda in modern memory. And when he could no longer carry that role, they quietly moved him aside. Hanson isn't shouting. He's connecting the dots, from auto-pen pardons to vanished debates, from media silence to unanswered questions about who was really running the White House. This isn't just about politics. It's about accountability, about what happens when transparency fades and history is rewritten in real time.
See, I think a lot of people, fairly or not, feel that it wasn't just a cover-up, but if you look at the mechanisms by which Joe Biden got the nomination, because it was evident in 2020. Cory Booker on the debate stage said, I don't know what he's talking about, when Joe Biden would flub or forget his message. So they knew as early as 2020, and then Jim Clyburn changed the date of the South Carolina primary, so he was coronated. In fact, the Democratic Party didn't really have an open nomination for 8 years. He was nominated, and and then he was coronated, and then he was removed, and then there's been no Democratic action. But see, I think it goes back. I don't want to belabor the point, but I think we've never seen anything like the Democratic Party of 2020, when all of the candidates just disappeared, and then the dates were changed, and he had not won a single caucus, not New Hampshire or Iowa. Then he was coordinated, and so what I'm getting at is, from the very beginning, they knew that he was old Joe Biden from Scranton, this ossified centrist, and that was very useful for them.
So it looks like the Democrats have a history, a tendency to get people that don't win anything. Because I know that I didn't realize that this was the case with Joe Biden. I wasn't following that closely, but I remember with Kamala Harris that she hadn't won anything, and she dropped out, I think, before Iowa back in 2020. So yeah, this is the way they do things in the Democrat Party. They do it so they are so wicked. And I'm not going to let the Republicans off either, because they are horrible. Some of them are horrible. I mean, they are not they can't be trusted no more than I can put them in my mouth and spit them. They can't be trusted. But this, I find, is very good information. It's just nice to hear it put together in this way.
And then a group of people who otherwise would have had trouble pushing the most progressive left-wing agenda really in modern memory found this waxen effigy very helpful. It wasn't that they were covering up because they were astounded at how debilitated he was, and they had to make it was more, we know he's debilitated, but Jill and Hunter and the Obama people, this is kind of an opportunity to push through a more radical third term of Obama. So they knew it all along when he was nominated. And that's why they could go to him and say, you're going to get out. Yeah, and these are the same people, if you recall, in 2019 and 20, they hauled up, and the media went gaga, they hauled up a Yale psychiatrist, Bandy Yee, and they brought her before the Senate, and she telediagnosed Donald Trump as mentally unfit. And she wrote a book about it, and they lauded her, and she was all over the media that she said that they needed an intervention. And then we also had this weird psychodrama between Andrew McCabe and Rod Rosenstein. They were going to wear Rod was going to wear a wire, and the FBI interim director was going to go in and trap Donald Trump and record him speaking, and this was going to be proof that he needed to be 25th amendment removed. And all of the left media got in this fury, and finally Donald Trump took the Montreal Cognitive Assessment because he was so worried that people had started with this narrative. And so these were the same people who thought there was nothing unethical about diagnosing somebody as cognitively unfit, who obviously wasn't. If you look at those long rally speeches and constant interviews and impromptu and ad hoc repartee that Trump did every single day. When you look, I went back and looked at a lot of the debates, and when you look at the 2020 debates on the Democratic primary, When Joe Biden would say things, the other candidates were stunned sometimes. They had no comprehension of what he was saying. And if you looked at Bernie and Buttigieg were the only people who had won a caucus. And then all of a sudden, Jim Clyburn changed the South Carolina date. Presto, he was gone. Buttigieg stepped down, Warren stepped down, Sanders stepped down, and then it was old Joe Biden. And then all these news came out that he was actually a moderate. And then he went in the basement, and that was a useful vessel. And that's why they really didn't have an open primary. They didn't have an open primary in 2024. They put Harris without an open primary. He lived by he was nominated by a coup and he was deposed by a coup, but
he was nominated by a coup and deposed by a coup. Remember after the presidential debate Biden had against President Trump back in June of last year, when he mumbled at the end and Trump was like, I don't know what he said at the end of that. I don't even think he know what he said. And then right after that, the very next day, everybody was telling him all across the media, step down, step down. You got to step down. Everybody. If you guys don't believe that the liberal propaganda media is not an arm, they are the media arm of the Democrat Party. They are the media arm of those demon rats. They really are. They really are.
The point is, what we thought was a debility, and he was kind of an empty vessel and struggling with cognitive problems. I think the hard left wing of the Democratic Party found this useful and advantageous, because they could wheel him out in certain cases. He could say stuff. And then if you look what he did at the border, we have never had anybody who destroyed a border and invited in 10 million people. It was just lunatic. We never had anybody who's printed $7 trillion. We never had anything like, since maybe 75 in Vietnam, anything comparable to that Afghan pullout. It was just Mayorkas. It was in like an alternate reality listening to Mayorkas talk for 4 years. And so they got what they wanted. That's what my point is. I really think they found him useful because he put a thin veneer for as long as he could maintain it. And then when he was no longer useful and they said, you know what, we can't push this left-wing agenda anymore because he can't even function as a veneer, they got rid of him. They just deposed him. They just called him in a room and said, you're done. And if you complain, we made you, we got you nominated, and we have the right to get rid of you. And then there was no primary. There was no other candidates. I think Joe Manchin for a nanosecond said he might consider running, and it was over like that. And that is the biggest scandal. And I think they need to call in everybody on every pardon and ask who operated the auto pen, who was there, and what they did. They need to do that, and they need to do it right away. And I think and then the other big scandal, and they don't stop. These were the two biggest scandals, and I think in any president's, we had FDR who tried to mask it, Grover Cleveland, JFK, but nothing like this compounded the cognitive problems, the medical treatment, and then he wants the American people. And there's thousands of urologists in the country. What do they think when they hear this concocted explanation? They know that it's completely illogical, impossible, fantastical.
See, this is the part that I really do feel kind of sorry for, Joe Biden. I think, unfortunately, I do still think he's a crooked politician. At the end of the day, I do believe he's racist. I believe all those things. Somebody may not believe that, but everything in his history and things he said, even when he was running in 2020, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't black. Something's wrong with him on a moral level. Now, as far as, I think he's had 2 aneurysm surgeries in his brain, so that may have contributed to it. This was very low bar. The Democrats just needed somebody there. They were going to run the country anyway. Allegedly, the shadow government was doing all of that anyway. But then people were like, what is wrong with him? And when it became painfully evident in that debate with Trump last year in June, when he mumbled, then everybody was like, you got to step down. And they had to pick Kamala Harris, I guess, because she was the vice president, and maybe people would buy that. But that was still not done the way it was supposed to have been done. The vice president is supposed to finish out that term for the presidency. If the president is not fit, not automatically be the candidate for the next term. There was no primary. So they just go ahead and set people up. No, you gotta drop out because it's him. You gotta drop out because it's her. Crazy, evil.
You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So why would they issue it that nobody would believe it? You know, in 2020, I wrote about Joe Biden hiding in the basement, that he was cognitively impaired. I did that. I got so many hate letters and people from Stanford University. And, you know, in one case, I was called up before the faculty senate for what I was writing or what I had said on Fox. And you get attacked. There were so many.
For those of you who are concerned about Iron Ear, she emailed me. She has to go take care of, I believe, a friend who is going through a hard time. But don't fret, Iron Ear is just fine. She sent me an email a few days ago, and I apologize for not saying that. I see your comments in the chat. She's fine. Just pray for her friend.
Many people, there were 50, 60 people who independently said this is something very wrong with this man. He should not be president, and the manner in which he has been nominated and the manner in which he is campaigning in 2020. We've never seen anything like it. I always said this is not the 19th century in a log cabin where you just sit out in the wilderness and watch the thing pass you by. It was incredible. He would it was almost like a drive-in movie. He was in a car, and then all the other people, like 20 people in cars, honking their applause. And it just kept going on. The more that you tried to point it out, the more hatred you would incur from letters and text and everything. And it wasn't just, to be frank, Megan, it wasn't just the left that was angry. It was the Republican establishment said, don't say that. That's cruel. Just tamper. It was really something else. And that's why people are so bitter, because these people who attacked people who tried to not just tell the truth, but to inform the nation that this was an unprecedented conspiracy. And we'd never seen anything like it. And it was very dangerous because we did not know who was responsible for this radical agenda that was far more radical.
Now, as soon as he said we didn't know who was responsible for this radical agenda, now it's on, Obama on the phone, okay? Because I always felt like Obama was the puppet master. I've done a video on that he was really pulling the strings. And remember that interview when Obama said he would always wondered about a third term where he could be in the basement in his sweats, telling everybody the person in an earpiece, they would be the front man, but he would be giving the command in their ear. I mean, I wonder if he was really just saying what was really going on. Yeah.
Than Obama. And Obama could have never pulled that off because he was suspect as a radical himself. But the use of this ossified figure from our past that had passed himself off as a moderate and an aged moderate was a useful vessel. And when you wrote about that, they accused you of being insensitive, mean, hating old people. Everybody incurred that hatred. So it's really frustrating to see all these people come out of the woodwork now and say, well, I knew it, but I didn't quite want to say it, but I feel humiliated. Because they're going to do it again. They're doing it again with the medical story, and they will do it again and again and again. There's no consequence. I don't know anybody who's resigned because of this? Is
right.
Scarborough going to resign? Is he going to say,
right.
You know what? I tried to convince all of you in America of something that was clearly false, and I apologize and I resign. They were using cheap fakes all the time, so that
yes.
They were projecting onto other people what they were doing.
Yes.
They were cutting videos and rehearsing things and lying about teleprompters. Then Brian Selter gets on and says, and Jean-Pierre says, this is cheap fakes. They knew that term because that's exactly what they were doing. And again, I don't know where you go from this. Another thing that's mystifying is that Joe Biden is now a private citizen, but he was president of the United States. And I think at some point, somebody has to try to tell us what was going on. Was it, and people can speculate, but I don't know if anybody that has medical expertise has ever said, was it a result of 2 serious aneurysm operations? What was it? Because we're just going to fade into history now. We know with FDR that he had polio, or maybe Guillain-Barré syndrome or something like that. At least that people knew that at the time. He tried to hide it, yes. But we look back in history and we can see what was wrong with Woodrow Wilson. He had a serious stroke. But are we going to, in 20 years from now, are people going to say, I had no idea, but Joe Biden was non-compos mentis? But we're never going to know what it was. It just all disappeared. He left office and it's like, okay, it's all over with. You don't dare talk about what's going on. It's over with. We're looking forward. He may have had a little problem with cognition. That's where we are right now.
Wow. So, yeah, I think they are doing it again with this latest diagnosis with the prostate. That is my belief, and this is just my belief, is that they are doing this with the prostate to try and make it very terminal, because they said it is terminal, because they are afraid. I think they're trying to find a way to get rid of. That's my opinion. I didn't say it was true. I just believe, allegedly, whatever I got to say, but I believe what I believe, that they're trying to get rid of. Let me just put it like that. Okay. Jim Crow Joe. Because, they have watched this man. He's supposed to have the best of the best medical care. And he is in this late stage of this disease that he has right now. I don't believe him. This is another thing that they're doing. They literally don't know how to play fair. Okay, the evil powers that be, and they come from both parties, by the way. I know we like to make the Republicans, their policies are better, but I don't think the people are necessarily better. You got some good ones. But I'm just saying, they are sitting right now somewhere trying to figure out what to do. And they have themselves to blame. All the lies. Oh, he's doing well. There's nothing wrong. And then the debate last year when he mumbled and Trump didn't even know what he said. He was like, I don't know what he said. And I don't think he knows what he said. And then they want him out. You step down. And I told you guys, it doesn't matter. I told you all last year, and some of you were saying, no, he's going to stay in. He's not going to step down. I said, it doesn't matter what he wants. When the evil powers that be gather together, lock arms, he is going to have to step down, and which is what he did. And then we got Kaplan, Kamala. They really don't have good candidates on the demon rat side. I don't see. Well, first of all, the policies suck out loud. The policies are horrible. Okay, so I just wouldn't be doing that anyway. And no, their policies are bad. So it doesn't matter what they say, talking about hope and change. No matter what they say, build back better. Joe Biden even lied when he was campaigning in 2020. His logo or his slogan, well, his slogan rather, not logo, but slogan was build back better. Remember that? And then I thought about it just recently. I said, build back better. He messed everything up. I mean, he lied then. Build back better. Better for who? The illegals? Is that who we building back better for? All these illegals coming across the border? And now we're trying to get rid of them. And President Trump is making new requirements for the SNAP and welfare, the welfare program SNAP, which is what they used to call food stamps. You have to meet work requirements. People don't like that. They're online fussing about that. These people that don't want to work. So guys, tell me what you think in the comments. Is this all is all of this actually going to come out eventually, like all the truth? Are we actually going to know everything that we've been wanting to hear with the JE files, the JFK, the MLK, all the things? Are we finally going to know? Are we finally going to see justice for Anthony Fauci, Mayorkas, Shifty Shift, the pencil neck guy, and others? Are we actually going to see that? And if you say yes, tell me what makes you think that we will actually see it. Some of you say nothing's going to happen. They're making a bunch of empty promises. Some people are upset with Pam Bondi, Dan the man, and also Patel. They're not doing anything, but we have to be patient. We want to make sure we dot all our I's, cross all our T's. We don't want to go and miss anything because they've got some heat coming up against them. They have a lot of heat. Trust me. But thank you guys for watching this video. Don't forget to like the video, comment, share, subscribe to my channel, hit all notifications. Don't forget to follow me on social media. Check the links in the description box below. I've got an X, Instagram, TikTok, Locals, Rumble. The link, if you click on the link in the description, it will take you directly there. And if you haven't created an account, I kindly ask that you create these accounts and follow me there and check me out. Okay. Thank you all so much for watching this video. You all be blessed. Love God, your families, these United States of America. And as I always say, march on, warriors. Good night, everybody.